There's no better experience than going back to one's roots and learning all about one's history, and that's what the Nkyinkyim Museum is here for. It's a place full of rich African history about where we came from as a people and where we are heading to. We are visiting today to experience some of that, and we are happy you could join us. This is People and Places. My name is Wandami Hagan. After the break, we'll meet our first guest and get right into the conversation. Welcome aboard. Welcome back from that quick break. Thank you for staying with us. This is still People and Places. Now we are at the entrance of the Nkyinkyim Museum and we are meeting Gideon Kweku Diajiman. He will be taking us round. So I would say he's our tour guide for today. Gideon, it's saying.
Boko, I want to say.
Yamiadum. So how long have you been here for?
Okay, I've been here for 2.5 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gideon is an artist, by the way. So, Nkyinkyim Museum, no, how big is the place?
Currently, we sit on 200-acre land here, but we have developed about 50 acres of the acquired land so far.
So far.
Yeah.
Okay.
So currently, we are operating on a 50-acre land.
But it's still expanding.
Yeah, it's a museum that is evolving. So we're still in the early stages of developing and expanding it.
These are very in-your-face monuments. I don't know what they mean. Can you just take us through?
Oh, okay. So we have here 3 monuments that are highlighting civilization in Africa.
Okay.
So the first one is the Sudano Sahelian monument.
This one?
Yeah, the very first one. And we want to incorporate the art forms and architectural styles, not only in Ghana, but the whole of Africa.
Okay.
So this one isn't found in Ghana. This is found in the southern part of Africa, or Sudan.
When you say this is found, as in the structure?
Yeah, this is typical of the architectural forms in Sudan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they've been engraved on the structure here. I mean, the designs inside are the ones from Sudan. That's what you're saying.
The structure.
The whole structure.
The whole structure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we decided to incorporate these traditional art forms and designs on it. Okay. Since we are talking about our culture and our heritage here in Ghana, so we wanted to include most of the popular art forms and symbols that have meaning here in Ghana.
Okay. All right. And then what do we have next?
The one that we have here is called the Obelisk.
Obelisk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the obelisk, that's the name, right?
Yeah, that is the name.
I see different symbols, footprints and the rest. Do they have meanings?
Yeah, they have symbolic meanings.
Okay.
If you are really conversant with Akan traditional art forms or symbols, you realize that most of these symbols are found in our cloth and the art styles and forms in Ghana.
Okay.
So there's a spider, there's a snail, there's a tortoise, there are footprints which are all symbolic.
Okay, right. And then the third one?
The third one is what we call the Lukasa. It is made by the people of Baluba who are found in Dr. Congo.
DR Congo.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is just the entrance. We are now getting into the place. But we want to find out, Gideon, what should we expect from our tour today?
Well, expect a lot. We have most artworks here that are not really found in Ghana here. We are one of the biggest outdoor museums here in Ghana and soon to be in Africa.
Okay.
So we are still expanding and we have art forms that talk about our culture and our heritage here in Ghana. So I think there's a lot that are going to be unfolded here.
Okay, so from the entrance, where next are we going?
So from the entrance, we enter into the museum proper, and I will take you to the story of the goats, or how the goats met the goats.
Okay.
It's a story that we have created, and I think when you get there, I would explain that story.
Yeah. Let me just hold you a little. These statues, are they called statues or
Yeah, they are
sculptures?
statues. It's the
Okay.
same thing.
What do they symbolize or signify?
Okay, we have the sacred grounds up there where we have our ancestral hairs, but pictures are not really allowed there. So when people come on tour and they want to leave a memory or go with a memory, this is where that they can take pictures.
Oh, I see.
So you can stand with the sculptures and you take pictures. That signifies that you were once here for a tour.
All right. Okay. So we are going to see the goats which met another goat.
Yeah, how the goats met the goats.
Okay.
So we move to this area first.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
And then this one, and there's another one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this area talks about how the goats met the goats, and it's a story that we created using world art. And you can see that there are goats found here in their universe or in their jungle, and they're all striving to get to the pinnacle of their lives. They're all trying to be successful. As humans, all of us are, trying to be successful in one way or the other. So these goats found themselves trying to do things that will take them to the highest pinnacle of their life. So you realize that on my left here, you would see two other goats there.
One down and one.
Yeah, one finds herself on the top of the roof, and in the world of the goats, the level that the goat up there has gotten to is the highest peak of the universe or their life.
Okay.
So it means that this goat has become successful. So you realize that there's a goat down there that has been trying several times to get to the level that goat is. But
trying to be like the successful one.
But she has been unsuccessful. And the goat up there is the greatest of all time, GOAT.
Yeah.
Because she has been able to make it.
Oh, okay.
So you realize that there's a dialogue between the two of them. So the one down there is asking the one up there how she got there, and she was advising the one down there about how to make it to where she is.
So giving her maybe tips or something.
Sure.
So the things in the wall are like the footprints.
They are the footprint because
of the one on top.
No, the one down there that has tried several times to climb to where she is, but so there's an advice that she gave her that I think would be told when people come here. We don't want to put everything out there.
That's for you to find out. So
Yeah.
you just have to come to the Nkyinkyim Museum to find out why. I mean, what advice the successful goats gave the goat which is trying to be successful.
Yeah.
Okay, but why the story though? What's inspired the story?
What inspired the story? You know that Africans we like creating stories. And these stories, they are embedded in them nuggets of wisdom that advises us, in the path of our life. So we wanted to create a story that has a symbolism with African lifestyle and how we live. So we wanted to use sculpture ways to create a story that has advice in it, that can advise all people from all walks of life.
Okay, great. Okay, so then our next move is that also has the tortoise, and is that a crocodile?
That's a crocodile.
Okay.
So this particular work, I won't really go much into details, but I can give a brief explanation.
Right.
So the first one is the circle of life. That's the big circle with the black paint.
The one, okay.
Yeah. And we call it Dikinga. Dikinga.
Dikinga.
Dikinga. It's from Bakongo.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a big circle, and you realize that there are other 4 small circles. And Dikinga means the cycle of life. So you realize that the 4 circles there is talking about 4 phases or stages of life.
Okay.
So the first one, the one on your right, talks about sunrise, which means that when you are giving birth to or when you come on earth as a newborn baby. And the second one talks about noon, and that's when you become an adult.
Okay.
And the third one talks about sunset. That's when you get to your old age.
Your peak.
Yeah. And the last one talks about midnight. That is where after leaving on earth, that's where you enter the underworld, or when you die as a human. So that is the meaning of the...
So from the time you're born to the time you die.
Yeah, so that's the cycle of life.
Right.
So we decided to use these particular animals, that the tortoise and the crocodile and the fish in the mouth. Can you see a fish in the mouth of the crocodile?
Oh yeah.
So these represent certain personalities as humans. Throughout our cycle of life, we, in one way or the other, tend to put on certain personalities or characters. You realize that the tortoise and the crocodile, they both have different personalities. The tortoise is very aggressive compared to that of the crocodile is very aggressive compared to that of a tortoise. So you realize that the tortoise, when you attack it, it will just crawl back into its shell without retaliating, but you can't do the same thing to a crocodile. Okay. And you realize that there's a fish in the mouth of a crocodile that has a story too behind it.
Okay.
And there's a proverb in Akan that says that, say,
okay.
So you realize that the fish finds itself in the mouth of the crocodile.
Right.
And we are using this to relate to the different personalities as humans. So as you go through the cycle of life, there are certain times that some people are very calm, others are aggressive, they fight for, or they go in for what they want in life or what they desire in life. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So that's it for the story of the goats and then the
cycle of
four
life.
phases, the cycle of life.
Yeah.
What's next?
So we have...
I don't know what to call them, planks or wood, or what are they called?
They are made of different materials. You can see wood, you can see metals there. And we have some brass sculptures on top of them that tells about a story.
So each of them have different components on top of them?
Yeah, when you get close, you realize that many activities are happening. And this particular section of the museum talks about the work life of the people of Adan, or the economic activities here in Adan.
Okay.
You realize that the people of Adan are mostly into farming and fishing. So we have used this sculpture to tell
their story.
The story. So when you come here, you realize that there are sections of how they fish, the commodities that are found in their market, that is fishing. Because when they go to the seashore to get their fishes or harvest their fishes, they have to bring it to the market. So there's a story that have been created using these sculptures.
Okay. And do you have an idea who molded these?
Okay, since we have a creative director here, that is Kwame Kotobanfo, he has under them artists, which I'm one of them. Okay. So we have in-house artists that produce all these works found in the museum.
Right. Okay, so where's the next stop?
We are heading to the studio that produces most of the artworks here in the museum. So welcome to the Ostrambus Studio. As I was saying earlier, Studio.
Okay.
So this is the studio that feeds the museum with all the artwork here. So here are the artists.
Some of the artists.
Yeah, that's work.
So this is where you do your sculptures?
Yeah, this is where we do the sculptures.
I'd like to speak to one of them.
Okay.
Okay, so we are speaking to the gentleman who is part of the artist who starts the whole sculpture molding process. His name is Mauli. How are you, boss?
I'm good.
Okay. What are you working on right now?
This bust, a short bust.
Okay. Does it have any significance or?
They're supposed to look like someone posing a daunting look on a slaver.
Okay. Okay.
And so he's supposed to look like someone who has been captured and maltreated. And so the expression is supposed to suggest something towards that end.
I see. And how long does it take you typically to do something like this?
Professionally, we are supposed to take up to between 4 and 6 months.
For one
Yes,
bust?
to do something like this.
Okay.
That's because we want it professionally made with a lot of details.
I'm not talking about the entire thing, just the molding stage.
Yes, just
6
the molding.
months.
Yes.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yes, just the molding.
Okay.
But then because of the nature of what we are doing, and then working with Kwame, who likes to push us a lot, so
you go beyond
we have
the
to
6 months.
we have to increase our speed.
Okay.
And so this one, for instance, started on Monday.
Wow.
Yes.
And you're already at
And
this
we are
stage.
already, yes.
That's nice.
And coupled with the fact that I don't spend a lot of time on it, and so maybe I'll just work on it 4 hours and then I'll move to something else.
Okay. And how long have you been sculpting for?
I've been working with clay since childhood.
Okay. But you were
then-
designing pestles and mortar.
Yes, I used to design. I was into cars back then, and so I used to do
You were
clay
designing
models
cars
of cars.
with-
Yes.
Okay, at
And
which
then-
age?
I remember when I was in kindergarten. That was when I was doing the cars. Okay, but then
See. Kindergarten.
yeah, kindergarten.
You started at a very early age.
Yes.
Okay.
The school I was at, they had this imported clay, colored clays, and so they made it fun.
Okay. Okay. So when you are sculpting something like this, do you have something you look on, or it's just from your mind?
When we are working on pieces like these, it's 3 ways.
Okay.
Either we have a model, and then if the model is unable to sit up with us, we just take images of the model. And so we start with the model, but then we end with the images of the model.
Oh, okay.
That's the other way. And then the third one is just using images.
Oh, I see.
And then sometimes this is a generic piece, and so a generic piece means that how you understand the human anatomy, and then the looking at people, interacting with a lot of people, the number of faces that you've been able to record of head. And so when you sit behind to work on pieces like this, how you're able to recollect some of these informations. That's what we put on display. And so this is a generic piece. It's partly from memory and then partly from reference.
What has your experience here at the Nkyinkyim Museum been like?
It's interesting.
Okay.
And it's fun. Naturally, I like environments like this, and so coming here and then working under these environments, it's stressful, but then it's enjoyable. Yes.
Okay. Even the pieces you get to work on, having to sculpt people in pain and all of that, what's the experience like? Does it give you any
naturally,
unique
yes.
feeling?
Naturally, when I'm working on pieces like this, I'm rather immersed in the process, and so I don't get to. The feeling I have with the piece is rather the transference of whatever I'm feeling
In there.
exactly, and so that's what happens within the process. But then the actual feeling of the whole piece comes to life when I'm done with it, and then it's already in the space.
Okay.
And so that's when I'm able to have some connections
Oh, I see.
with it. But then in the process, the only connection I feel is what I transfer.
I'm sure you've designed hundreds of pieces since you were a child, since you started at,
Yes,
kindergarten. So, since you came here in Nkyinkyim, how many moldings or how many sculptures would you say you've done so far?
That's an interesting one.
An estimate. Maybe it's a lot, but 20, 30, 50.
The nature of what we do over here, one, it doesn't allow us to keep record of how many pieces an individual person is doing, because a lot of the times we are interchanging responsibilities, and so sometimes, for instance, yesterday I just spent 2 hours on it, and then Kwame, Kwame took over.
Okay.
So when it happens that way,
You can't
it's
say
more of a
one
collaborative
piece.
thing than an individual piece.
All right, thank you, Molly, for speaking with us, and all the best in finishing up your piece. So we are moving to the next person, to the next stage of sculpting, and we'll be speaking to Williams. How long have you been here for?
Oh, I came here August, and then I'm here to do my attachments, and then it was supposed to last for 2 months. But after the attachment, I was supposed to go actually, but I decided to stay around and then learn some more.
Where did you come from?
I'm from Accra, Kaswa.
Okay. I mean, which institution?
Takrady University.
Oh, okay. So you came here for like training or practicals or internship?
It's actually internship, which will last for 2 months, from August, and this August, September, yeah.
I see. So what have you been doing since you got here?
Talking of that, I've done a lot, but the basic ones, I think I support cleaning, yeah, and then I don't only assist them on sculpture works, but I also help them to put up structures to keep the place clean, and then make sure that the place is organized, and as well as also come to the studio and then, of course, work.
Okay, so what are you working on?
I'm working on a piece that I'm supposed to cast, and then after they are done with the head, they'll bring it to me, and then I'll cast it. I'll take the mold actually, sorry.
Okay.
And then I'll use, what I use is the silicone, right?
I think you are going a bit fast.
Okay.
So what does the process entail? You start by molding the clay.
And then after molding, right? Let's say it's a head that you are doing. So after molding the head, which is actually there, it will be brought here for me to use silicone.
Okay.
Right, to pick the mold.
Okay.
Of it. So I'm going to use to cover the face. That means the front and the back will be covered with the silicone.
Okay.
After that, I will send it there for them to also use cement or POP, right, to also cover it, so that
to cover the silicone.
To cover the silicone
on the clay.
Yeah. So that.
But what does this process do? What does the silicone do?
Okay, the silicone actually is used to pick the exact, content in the clay. So if there's a face that is closed or the eyes are closed, the silicone will pick everything, every detailed part of the image of the face. Basically, that's what the silicone does.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then after that, you send it to the next stage, which is what?
He will be doing the casting, right? So he will cover the front and back with cement, yeah.
And then after that,
when
it's ready.
When it's dried, it will be split apart, and then inside it, we are going to either pour cement, which we pour it inside the silicone.
Okay.
So we'll let it dry. And then we will pick it out, because this surface is flexible, right? So when we pick it out, then we are going to do the same to the back too. So we are going to join them.
The cement from both ends.
Join them.
And that's what he does.
Yeah, that's what he does, the joining and the cement work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And how has your experience here been like since you started working?
It has been educative. I learned more. And it's not only about sculpture. We taught history, in terms of Black history. Yeah. And then basically, you learn more. It's not only about sculpture that I learned here. I learned I learned more about time management too. And I think it's very important as an artist to know how to manage your time. So there are basic things that I was able to learn. And I was taught some of the things that when I go to school, I wouldn't be taught.
How challenging is it here?
Well, basically, I will start from the experience because you haven't had such exposure. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, first of all, it's a challenge to you. So, are you going to be open up to the task and do it, or you are just going to give up? Which I chose not to. Though I'm done with my attachment, I decided to stay to get more knowledge.
Okay.
That's my decision. So, you have to accept every challenges that comes. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for speaking
welcome.
to us. And we are still exploring the sculpting process. We are at the last stage, and we have Ni. He is the one who completes the whole process. How are you?
I'm fine.
Okay. How long have you been doing this?
Quite 11 years this.
11 years?
Yeah. Started working with Mr. Kwame Akutubanfo. I started training with him, so...
Oh, I see. Okay. And what does this... let me ask, how is this stage called, or what is it called?
This stage is called detailing. It's a finishing process, that's the casting and the detailing of its parts.
Okay. Okay. And how long does it take for you to do that?
Personally, like the cast take like 2 days to be cured because it's cement.
To be cured?
Yeah.
What else?
To cure very well, like the cement cast. So it takes like 2 days when you cast it in the mold. I think the mold that is doing preparing over there. So it will take like 2 days for you to be well cured.
Okay.
Before you can take it off and enjoy it.
Okay.
To get to this stage, before you come with the finishing processes, or so at least it can even take like 3 days or 4 days to finish everything up.
Okay. And here, what do you do?
Here it's like the processes of it all ends here. So it's like this is the finishing stage, and this is where we want to get the projects to. So it's like the starting. This is the kind of material that we need to finish the particular piece.
So which materials do you use?
We use cement, we use white glue to do all the finishing touches.
So you mix,
Yeah,
it's a
we
mixture
mix,
of
yeah,
cement and
it's
white
a mixture of white glue, like something like this. All forms of different shades, like we have different techniques. So it depends on the kind of model. Like if I see the kind of model, I know what hairstyle or any detailing that I'll give. So all depends on the material. So something like this, I'll have to bring in white glue to do the finishing of it. Some too, I can just use only just cement to finish it.
And I see a woman opening her mouth.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, what
It's
is
like-
it supposed to signify?
It's like it's a pain.
She's in
she's
pain,
in pain,
and
yeah.
agony. Okay. Right. All right. So thank you for
You're
speaking to
welcome.
us. That is the last stage of sculpting. It's getting interesting, but there's still a lot more to explore. Right about now, though, we want to have a little conversation with the owner of the place, Kwame Akutubanfo, after which we'll continue with our tour. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Powers and principalities.
There's so much fire inside me.
Tragedy struck when part of the largest hillside at the kosher rubbish dump collapsed.
It's going to be fun to see how he goes about approaching this game.
Nkyinkyim is an Edinkra symbol of the same name, and it signifies our journey as an African people. So it's Akan, and coming from Akan traditions, that's what I could relate to, considering the narrative that I wanted to use our art to tell. Well, I did set out to give a much more panoramic view or panoramic narrative of our African heritage, and Nkyinkyim just does it. It's about twists and turns, it's about adaptability, and it's about evolution across time, and that is for me the best symbol to signify what this installation, my installation, and what this museum represents. It's about 11 years now, but we've only been here in this space for 4.5 years. The concept itself was conceived somewhere around 2006, after my first degree at KN University. But I only started creating the first sculptures for it 11 years ago. It came as an idea. For every creative, you have an idea, and then you learn how to refine it over the years. So for example, I was more of a creative then, and I had very little experience in museum organization or even running my own studio. But I had to start something. So part of it has been a learning process. I had to take a few courses, or maybe work with a few institutions to gain more experience to be able to run this on my own. Bachelor of Fine Arts and then Master of Fine Arts from the same institution. Both my undergraduate graduation projects and then my master's research was into multidisciplinary eclecticism.
Okay.
So basically, as an artist, I do everything, from animation to stone carving to writing, to sculpting and painting, whatever and then creative directing. Whatever the media I'm able to, I try to choose the best medium of expression. But over the years, there is this part of sculpture that I feel appeals to the African story and then the African people, and to making the art and then the history and the narrative very accessible. And that's how come I use sculptures more. What our purpose has been and how it has evolved over the years. So what has made up our life and our purpose as a people. African enslavement, as we feel it now, the Middle Passage, transatlantic slave trade, the Arabic slave trades, are relatively much more smaller, but it is one of the most impactful, especially in the negative sense, and the ones closest to our time. It is one of the major phenomena that is affecting our life now as Africans. Now as being considered people with black skin, and certain people choosing to see themselves as better off than Africans. It's been difficult, but it's certainly getting better. It's been difficult because various sections of this project have been attempted by various people in Ghana and all over the world. But the way in which we are putting it together is a bit unique, and thus at the beginning it made it difficult for people to really understand what exactly that we were doing. People thought it was all about African enslavement, which it is not. And Secondly, to some of the subject matter which I decide to stress on or emphasize have automatically made it difficult for some people to feel comfortable sponsoring what we are doing. So in that sense, it becomes difficult and challenging. But we've also had, whilst we haven't always had financial support, we've also had non-financial support and encouragement from various people and institutions. I work with people who are genuinely interested in having us tell our story without trying to be the deciders of how the narrative should go. I work with people who are used to the very idea of academic dialogues and having black people tell their own stories. And in the spirit of academia and research, it's about human relationship and who is nice to you and who is not. So usually I won't go in with the idea that this person is a descendant of a slave master, as long as we are treating each other as normal human beings. So usually it hasn't been most of what will be considered negative has been a bit more remote because I've been lucky to mostly work with academics who are aware of the current dialogue on racism, various tropes surrounding African narratives and the telling of African narratives. Number one is a very spiritual journey. Number two is very nuanced. And so there is a healing process, which is one of the major reasons for doing this, apart from just telling our story, is to try and have a healing process so that the smallest section or the bad nuts in our history doesn't spoil the whole of our history. And so one of the key moments is realizing that different people are in different stages of healing and freeing themselves from the legacies of African enslavement. It comes with a realization that your peacefulness within your soul, a realization that your culture and your history is not devilish, and acknowledging or venerating your ancestors is not going to lead you to hell. That is there are a lot of people who are living their lives to get to a better afterlife. And this journey of them getting to a better afterlife has been polluted by the thoughts that everything African is negative and nothing positive is going to come from our culture. And we are having a lot of people who are going outside of the continent for pilgrimages. For those of us who've had or who are continuing to get the spiritual healing, we have now found that peace that we think we will get from going outside the continent on a pilgrimage to get. We are now beginning to get, you get that healing within yourself and then on the continent from the very way of life that your ancestors lived. It has everything to do with religion, and then also it doesn't. Christianity especially has always been on the continent. Only if you're looking at the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, only the kind that was pushed to the enslaved and the colonized was a bit different. So yeah, in that context, it does have something to do with religion. But there are those who just learn and practice the ways of their ancestors without necessarily tagging themselves as traditionalists. I'm speaking from the experience of Ghanaians who really mostly have three religions. So we have two Abrahamic religions, and then a traditional religion, so Islam, Christianity, and then our own traditional religion. And then again, it also has everything to do with religion when you realize that most of the people who were able to free themselves from enslavement and colonization first had to decolonize their minds and their religions. So if you're looking at the Haitian Revolution, it was deeply connected to the religion. So like people who didn't believe that the colonial masters or their enslavers were the epitome of holiness. So there's a section dedicated to the enslaved, and by the time you go around, you realize that there are other sections dedicated to healing and the rest of our journey, and then dedicated to the self. For example, when you start interacting with the mirrors that we have at the end of the installation, you realize it's pointing to your relationship within history, your place within history, and how you matter, and you are a key element in the Nkyinkyim journey. So the ones with the heads, those are specifically dedicated to the memory of our enslaved ancestors, and we have a few of them, like the ones you find in the US, which, even though they are full-bodied sculptures, are also dedicated to the memory of African enslavement. But then there are other sculptures that you will find which are on our heritage and not necessarily got to do anything with African enslavement. Like the monuments at the entrance are also part of the museum and within the space, but they are not necessarily about African enslavement. Ghanaian African heritage, using Ghanaian African heritage because we are tracing a history that goes beyond when country boundaries or artificial boundaries were created for us. So we were tracing migrations and people and philosophical concepts, which precedes the ideas of countries and Anglophones and Francophones, and regrouping ourselves according to the language of colonial masters. Well, the first revelation, which is the largest, I may not be able to give a second one, is the fact that you don't know it all and then you can't do it all. And there's always somebody who knows more about some of these things or these phenomena and then the history and the heritage than you. So I think that's the biggest. I'll probably wrap the two into one, and that is why we invite other scholars to contribute and then to guide where this is going. And then we also invite historians from various traditional homes to also contribute. I always say that it's not my story, it is our story. And so being inclusive to all kinds of Africans, whether they've been to formal school, formal Western style school, or they've been trained traditionally, we have created a system that welcomes all kinds of creatives and people who want to express. So one typical event that we have created for the specific reason of making sure that everybody's voice is expressed is Nkyinkyim Festival. Okay. So it's a creative communal labor, and we've had people from as far as New Mexico to the Caribbeans, to as close as Adan and Vume and Togo and Nigeria coming into the space. learning what they don't know and then contributing what they know and what we don't know to be able to, create this and make this our thing. My favorite collaborator is Efosela Eje.
Okay.
Or should I say Dr. Efosela Eje. He's a Ghanaian artist, philosopher, and then educator. He's currently at the National Film and Television Institute, NAFTI. He's also an independent researcher. I've also had a lot of both training and exchange of knowledge from Dr. Obelisk, currently with African Studies, my good friend Michael Morand from the Bianiki Library for Rare Manuscripts, Yale University. And then I've had Mary Yabwa. Mary Yabwa is currently at Queen, Chicago. And she also helps with all sorts of organizations and all sorts of things, whilst doing her own personal journey on African, the life of Africans in the US. And then I can never forget Danny Danson, who is currently one of the curators and directors at Dusable Museum, Chicago.
Okay.
Who I've also worked with ever since we met in 2016, 2017 when he was a Fulbright scholar. And we organized a really huge exhibition at the Cape Coast Castle.
Okay.
So there are various scholars, various not only talented but masters of their field who are contributing to this. And the people I've mentioned, we are black people and then white people as well. Yes, I have. I definitely have a better understanding of how neocolonialism worked and is still working. And we are hoping that part of the healing that this project provides is educating and emancipating our Africans as well as our oppressors on how this is working and how we need to stop it. The viewers cannot see, but when I look straight at our camera people, everything that they are wearing was not made in Ghana. So that is dollars, that is not coming into Ghana now. And I have also bought into that, while I was growing up. We have used clothing that are brought in, we have electronic waste that are brought in. We have an influx of products that can be manufactured here, but we have had various African countries being sanctioned if they decide not to bring in certain waste products and then maybe not buy what we call certain used clothing. Ghana's not on PayPal. So we can have European markets having access to us. For you to be able to sell your homemade products, you will have to go outside Ghana, have a US European account before you are allowed on Amazon. So there are so many of these that I can mention. Even the way we judge our own. If you don't speak a certain class of English, you are not intelligent enough. You will have to speak oblivious of the fact that it is not your first language. So the master's language has become the standard. And not only are not judging you based on the language, they are judging your very intelligence based on how articulate you are. And not everybody, you can be as intelligent and not articulate in somebody else's language. And when I came here to Wada, if I'm speaking Cree, I can speak very intelligently. If I'm speaking Ga, if I'm speaking Dangbe or Ewe, I speak like a child. So that's every time to an other person or to another person, no matter the education that I have, whenever I'm speaking, the words are coming out one at a time. We provide what we can. We are training people in agriculture. We are training people in facility management. We have an apprenticeship system here. So people from different levels are still able to come and learn. Whilst they've not been to the university, so we're teaching certain subjects in local languages. As you go through the back, you see different girls learning hospitality and catering. We do pottery and fish farming. So other practical skills aside of the arts that they will find useful as everyday Ghanaians who don't have access to elite artistic or creative spaces. They will still have something to do with their daily. Nkyinkyim is all over the world, but that is not the impact for me. The impact is when it changes the livelihood of an African and when it's able to keep pressure on racial injustice. I see it at the end of the tunnel. I see it's a journey. A lot of the students we've had here and tourists, because we've had people who come for educational tours and for pilgrimages, we've been able to reach people spiritually. We've had various pilgrimages that is done here. Pilgrimages that previously would have been done outside of the continent are being made here to pay homage to our ancestral enslaved ancestral site. Our work is to change the mindset of the African and let him or her feel the impact of the mindset that has been changed. So our work is to educate. We had our youth outreach program before we came here. We've been as far as the Volta region. We've been to Ghana, we've been to certain schools in Ghana. Basically schools that will not have had access to PhD teachers and high standard artists or professionals to be able to learn from. So we're taking my friends, my colleagues, part of our staff. We have people with high degrees and PhDs. We're taking all of them into these spaces and we are letting them impact on the pupils and the students. That was before we had our space, so we were touring around, going to various schools. And now that we have our space, pre-pandemic, we had buses of schools coming here. And then we've been outside Ghana, we had people, me working as a study abroad professor for certain institutions outside Ghana. Yeah. So we are in a dialogue with certain people at GES to be able to extend the reach so that a lot of people benefit from what we have to teach and tell. Well, I have a few sculptures coming bound for the US again next year. But I'm also excited about our new history wall that we unveiled this year that is showing the art of our generation, the art of our now generation. You will see we just started to cover the protest in Nigeria and then the protest in the US as well. Considering that it's a 100-meter wall and about 15 feet high, it's still relatively small, but we are excited that we are connecting the history of now to the past, and people will now see, as I've tried to explain to you, the impact of the past on the present. It would take you to share what you want to be healed about. One of the things that I talk about when it comes to healing is for the ill, him or his or his, himself or herself to be part of the healing process. And as you come, we dialogue with you and then we find out what you need healing in, and we help you to embark on that journey, whether it's healing physically or spiritually. And as you said, spiritually, and what exactly in spirit would you want to heal from. We'll do all the best that we can to help you embark on that journey. We are a syncretic society, so we have Muslims and we have Christians and we have traditionalists. So depending on what appeals to you, as long as it has got to do with your African heritage, to point you in the correct path, as best to our knowledge as we know, then we can help you on that journey.
Gideon tells us we still have a long journey ahead of us. There's
not really long, but we can still manage it.
Okay, so where are we going to now?
So right now we are heading towards the ancestral veneration grounds where we have the main Nkyinkyim installation, a place that has been dedicated to pay homage to our ancestors.
Okay, right. And that's the main installation here?
In the museum.
So then let's get to see.
So welcome to the ancestral veneration grounds where we are paying homage to our ancestors. So this is what we call the Nkyinkyim installation.
And what do we have here? Those are a lot of human sculpted heads all over the place. And then there are the clay items. What are they too?
These are fired clay. We call it clay or terracotta. That's the art term for it, terracotta.
Okay.
That's the traditional ones, and we have the modern ones made of cement.
So these are also sculptures?
Yeah.
But smaller
ones, and they are in clay, fired clay, called terracotta.
I see. So these ones are left like that, no cement is added?
No.
But you sculpt them too?
Like we sculpt them. And this is the traditional way of making heads in the Akan tradition. Yeah.
And some of them are black. Is there any reason?
No, we fire them in a kiln or we bake them so
they become black.
Yeah, some of them got that color.
Okay, so these heads, what do they represent?
So these are what we call insudie or insiswo. In the Akan And in the Akan tradition, when someone dies, they will make one of these insudie and put it on the grave of the person. And currently, when you go to our various cemeteries, we have the modern ones that are made of cement or sprayed. So many years ago, in the Akan setting, this is what they will use to pay the last respect or pay homage to a dead person. So this is the traditional form here. And on our left, we have that of the cement one.
So it's the same thing, just the cemented form?
Yeah, the same thing.
So these bigger ones are also called insudie?
Oh, no, these are made, it's insudie, but we are using modern materials to talk about the same thing. And that's what inspired my boss to create these heads.
Okay.
So these are
the smaller ones inspired him to create
the bigger ones. And we use modern materials and modern techniques of making sculpture to produce this one. But basically, this is what inspired him to create these sculptures.
Oh, okay. So I see different faces with different expressions. This one, for instance, has a blindfold. Like, what do they represent? Why do they have these expressions on their faces?
So this particular area of the museum is dedicated to pay homage to our ancestors that were involved in the transatlantic slave trade. Our ancestors who were enslaved and taken from the shores of Africa. Okay. So these heads are to pay homage to our ancestors. So these particular ones found in the water is dedicated to those of our ancestors who were drowned in the ocean when they were being transported out of Africa.
Those who tried to escape, or those who were thrown into the water?
Some were thrown into the water. Some also tried to escape the brutalities and the atrocities that they were facing in during their journey. So this particular section of the installation is dedicated to that narrative.
There are children also involved, so it's adults, grown, and children. It's a mixture of things.
Yeah.
The water here, is it like rainwater? You actually pour water?
It's a combination of the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's always in water?
Yeah.
Okay. And then this side, I see something like a graveyard.
Yeah. So here is the Nkyinkyim installation, as I said earlier, and we have about 1,005 heads over here.
This part?
Yeah, 1,005 heads over here, and the clay ones that are in Sudano also close to 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are the faces of our ancestors who found themselves in the transatlantic slave trade.
Okay. They are imitated faces, right?
Yeah.
Like from Kwame's own idea.
Yeah. So these are role models or human beings that were modeled in our studio. And Kwame believes that perchance one of our ancestors or great-great-grandfathers or grandmothers were parts of the enslaved. So when you come to our studio and we model you, we believe that you are representing one of your ancestors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so these are real faces that have passed through our studio or our museum, and we've sculpted them.
I see. Since when?
This project started about 10 years ago. So he has been
for
evolving.
10 years,
He's been able to
captured
create
faces.
different faces from all walks of life.
But is it that these people make the expressions, or he just looks at their faces and models different expressions in their face?
Because of the narrative that we are talking about, that is the pain and the brutalities that our ancestors went through, they had to go with this particular expression. You realize that all the expression on these faces are that of a sad face, those who are in pain.
So aside tourists coming here to learn about history and all about the slave trade and everything, what else is this place used for? What else happens here?
So this place has been dedicated to pay respect to our ancestors. I know we know their story although, but it's not really taught in most of the histories that we find around the world. So this place is to add to the history of what happened so many years ago. To realize that the first ship that left the borders or shores of Ghana took place about 400 years ago. So that's why we have these 4 poles over here that signifies 400 years that slavery started here.
Ghana.
Yeah, that is early.
These 4 poles.
These 4
the
poles.
One with the blue rope and
Yeah, that's what has been documented. But even before that, the Portuguese came here during the early 1500s. So we have another pole here that makes it 500 years.
Oh, okay.
So the 400 years is what has been documented, but before that, it was happening. Yeah. So this place is dedicated to pay respect to our ancestors, as I said earlier on.
And is libation or anything poured here?
Well, in the African belief, anytime that we want to honor our ancestors, libation is poured. So in August every year, we hold a program and we invite people from all walks of life, and we receive chiefs from Adan and surrounding neighbors. They come here, they come and perform their traditional rituals, and they do also pour libation to pay respect or homage to our ancestors.
And I see some pots beside the poles. Do those have unique significance? Or?
Okay, for the pots, earlier on I was saying that in Sudan, the clay works are used to pay respect to our dead relatives. So in the Akan tradition, when a man dies and leaves behind a wife and some children, what they do is they will cut the fingernails of the wife and the children, and also cut the hair, shave all the hair of the wife and the children, and they will put it in a pot and put it on the graveyard of the man. And currently what we have is the flowers that we put on tombs. That was what traditionally Akans were doing. So this is to signify that part of the history. Because
the last bit is the, I don't know what to call them, the stands in front there.
These ones?
In front of the big baobab tree.
So these are all traditional art forms that are used to educate us Africans and all people from other parts of the world about the values that we have here in our culture. So we're trying to combine both traditional artwork and contemporary ones. So these are most artworks that can be found in and around Africa.
Right. Okay, so that's it for the Nkyinkyim installation. Very symbolic, spiritual elements in here. And we've had the chance to see it because Kwame and Gideon took us round to have a feel of the place. So what's next for us?
So now we are heading out of the ancestral veneration grounds. We'll be exiting the main museum, but there are some few artworks that we can see before we finish our tour. So now we'll be heading towards the healing section of the museum. Yeah.
So we are getting to the end of our tour.
Yeah.
But I see some symbols around here.
Okay.
What does this section?
So this section talks about rebirth or healing. And as you know, Africans right from beginning of history, we have suffered a lot of things, right from slavery to colonization, and even up to now we're still fighting many battles. So this section of the museum, it's talking about rebirth, healing from what has taken place over the years. So we have some fertility artworks here that we call Akuaba.
Okay.
And you know what Akuaba means. In the Akan tradition, Akuaba is used when someone wants to conceive. Yeah, so this fertility
element.
Yeah. Okay. So we are heading towards the exit of the Nkyinkyim Museum. Yeah.
What are the mirrors in the museum?
So after going through your tour, you come and learn about the values of Africa, our culture and heritage, our history. After getting this knowledge, we believe that now you have fair knowledge about where we've come from as Africans and where we are as Africans and where we are heading towards.
So it's for reflection.
Reflections.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. This is how we end our tour today. It's been a very, very enlightening experience, and we did this with Gideon. Gideon, thank you so much for taking us around the place. Earlier we spoke to the brain behind this facility. It's very monumental. You need to experience this place for yourself. Come here, learn about all about the African heritage, where we came from, colonialism, the rebirth, and just reflect on where we've come from and where we are now as a people. This is People and Places. Thanks for your company. We'll meet you in another edition. Until then, stay safe and take care. My name is Wanda Amihagan.